Hey, Algebra 2, this is Mrs. Tran-Bloom, ending our Unit 3 with 3.8, creating equations from graphs. Number 1 says here, gather information about the graph to begin. We want to identify the parent function. Remember, we so far have studied absolute value, which is the V shape. The equation is y equals absolute value of x. So this is a V shape. Then we study quadratic equations. So that was y equals x squared. So remember, this is a degree of 2, and it looks like a u. Then we study cubic, which is a degree of 3, guys. So the equation is y equals x to the third, and that was like a snake, like that. And this is a degree of 3. Okay, degree of 3. And then remember, we also had linear, which is a degree of 1, which is a line. Okay. Linear, it's a line. Polynomial, students, it's an equation that would be a degree that's, in this particular case, we want to say it's bigger than 3 since we say degree of 3 is cubic. And then piecewise, which when we had multiple pieces, okay. Now, anything that's important, such as the vertex, inflection point, x-intercept, y-intercept, these are important points that we want to list out before we put it together in an equation. Then remember the HK formula. We want to plug in order pair, the vertex or inflection point, or if it's a linear, then it's just a point for the HK. We want to use our awesome algebra skills to find the missing A value after we plug in the H and the K, okay? Now let's try 3 examples here. So when we look at the first one, the example 1, 2, and 3, all we are trying to do, guys, is to write the equation. Oh, this formatting sucks. Okay, so we are going to cross this out and we are going to write down here, okay? Parent function, sorry about the formatting here, and valuable point, so valuable point. All right. So if this is what we see, as you guys can see here, it's a U shape. So if it's a U shape, we know this is a degree of 2. Okay, it's a parabola. We know it opens upward. So these are all the key or facts based on this picture. It opens up, so that means A is positive. We also want to recognize the parent function. Because it is a parabola, the parent function is y equals x squared, okay? Now, guys, we want to write down the HK equation here. So pretty much y equals a times the quantity of x minus h, close that up, square, because it's a degree of 2, then plus k. Our job, students, is going to look for the a value, so we'll leave that blank to fill it in. We need to find the h value, we'll leave that blank to fill that in, and we also need to find the k value. Those are the 3 blank spaces that we have to fill in. So that brings us to the valuable points. We have x-intercepts here, 2 of them. So that's going to be -5, 0, and 3, 0. We also have the vertex, students. This is your h, k. So that's going to be at, let's see, -1 and -4. So -1, -4, this is your vertex. Normally, we would also list the y-intercept as well, students. But if you can see it here, the y-intercept is not a nice point because it's not an exact value. So for right now, we are not going to list that out, okay? But we can fill in 2 of the blank spaces right away. We can fill in the vertex, which is the h and the k. So it's going to be a -1 and a -4. Those are the h and the k. Our next goal is to find the a value. So to find a value, we are going to use to find a, okay? Use a nice, okay, point that was not used. All right, so we can't use the vertex again because it was already used, but we can find A by using the one of the valuable points here. In this case, we can pick this one, and it doesn't matter. You can pick whichever one you want. Okay, so with that said, y is 0. So that means we are going to plug in 0 for y. A is what we're trying to find, so put A back in. X, students, is -5, so -5, we fill that in for X, fill 0 in for Y because this one is 0 and this one's -5. Then remember, we have two negatives, which makes it a +1, and square that, drop down the -4. Now we're just going to use awesome algebra skill to solve for A. So this is 0 equals A times -5 plus 1, students, is -4, square, drop the 4 down. We are going to have 0 equals quantity of -4 squared is 16. So this is 16A minus 4. We are going to try to solve for A by adding 4 to both sides. Okay, so now we have 4 equals 16A divided both sides by 16. So that will give us an A value of 4 over 16, which you do have to reduce that down to 1/4. So fill that in as 1/4. Now we're done. We fill in the A, we fill in the H, and we fill in the K. And I'm just going to write it over here and box that up, guys. So Y equals 1/4 times the quantity of X plus 1 square and then -4. Remember, we have two negatives, so make that a plus, okay? All right, so to write an equation for example 2, it's very similar. So first, let's identify the shape. This is V shape, so we know V shape is going to be an absolute value, right? Now the parent function for an absolute value is going to be Y equals absolute value of X. Next, we want to see, okay, is it opening upwards or downward? It opens up, meaning that A is going to be positive. So when we write an equation and we find A, H, and K, make sure A is matching up with the graph. Now we do want to find some nice points, so let's look at those ones. The x-intercepts are, let's see, I'm going to -1, 0 and 3, 0. In this one, the y value is also super nice. So the y-intercept here is going to be 0, -2. And the vertex, it's also awesome. The vertex is 1, -4. All right, so now we want to put it in the A times the quantity of X minus H. Remember, this is an absolute value, not quantity, my bad. And then plus K. Our goal is to really, students, to find A, H, and K and fill it in. So I'm going to leave that blank, the A blank, and then minus the H blank, and then the K blank. Now, to fill in the H and the K value, students, it's pretty easy. H and K, it's always the vertex or the inflection point. So we are going to fill that in with 1 and -4, okay? Now, the A value is when we kind of have to find it using a point that we have not used already. In this case, I'm going to use either the x-intercepts or the y-intercept. Those are the simplest point because one of the values is 0, right? Now, we can use a y-intercept in this case if you want. You can use the x-intercept. It doesn't matter. You get to choose, okay? So if we use the y-intercept, as you can see, the y is -2. Write the 8 over again. The x is 0, so 0 minus 1, absolute value, and then -4. Now, 0 minus 1, students, is always going to be a -1. And then an absolute value of -1 is +1. So that's really A times. Now, we are going to take it out of the absolute value because it turns everything into positive. Now, 1 times A, students, is going to be 1A. Well, 1A is the same as just A. So now we solve it by doing basic algebra. Add 4 to both sides. Okay, so now we are going to get +2 equals A. That's where we plug it in, right there. So now let's just rewrite this and box it up. We rewrite it because it's just nicer, all right? So absolute value, the 2 goes in the front. Remember that. So y equals 2 times absolute value, x minus 1. Close it up with the absolute value bar, and then -4. Box that up. All right, guys, so this looks Completely different from the first two examples, but that's okay. So first we want to see what shape this is. We know this is a snake, right? Well, students, a snake shape is going to be a cubic. Well, a cubic is a degree of 3, so the parent function is y equals x to the third. And remember, the parent function looks like this, right? Now, what this looks like, it's the other way around. So we know a is negative. A is negative. So when we find a, make sure we reflect back to what we're writing right now. Valuable points, the first one looks like it's at the x-intercept at 8, 0. Then we have an inflection point here. It looks like that's 7 and then 2. So inflection point at 7, 2. Currently, we can't see the y value, so that's all of the valuable points that we are going to get out of this picture. So let's start writing the y equals a times the quantity x minus h to the third power and then plus k. Our goal is, remember students, to fill in the a, okay, so we're going to write x minus and then the h, close it up to the third power, and then leave that blank space. Now, for the cubic, your inflection point will be the h and the k. So that right there allows us to say, okay, well, h is 7, k is 2. Our one value that we have to find is going to be your a value. So we only have one valuable point left for us to use. I mean, technically, students, you can go in and use any point that's on the graph here that's not already used, such as the inflection point. But like we said before, the x-intercept and the y-intercept are typically the easiest because one of the values is 0, but you don't have to use it. You can use this one. What is this one? This is 6, 4. So 6, 4. You can put 4 in for y, 6 in for x, and then solve for it normally, and so get an a value that should be exactly the same as using 8, 0. So for our purpose here, we are going to use the 8, 0. Y is 0, so 0 equals, again, we're solving for a, so we're going to write a back. X is going to be 8. I was going to write x, but x is 8 minus 7 to the third power, and then drop the 2 down. Well, students, 8 minus 7 is going to be 0. Oh, whoa, not 0. Whew, I meant 1. 1 to the third is going to be 1. So now we have 0 equals a times 1 plus 2. Well, 1 times a, students, is going to be a. So 0 equals a plus 2. Well, all we have to do now is move the 2 over, and moving the 2 meaning that we're doing its opposite. So negative 2 equals a. We did say a was going to be negative, so this is awesome. Fill that in. So right now, our final equation, students, for this example is y equals negative 2 times the quantity of x minus 7 to the third power, and then plus 2. That is it.